What's up everyone, Blade here, and welcome back to another video of Persona 5X. Inside today's video, guys, we're going to be going ahead and going over some of you guys' responses deciding on the end of the year changes. Now, we went over this video, I want to say a day ago here, in which I did ask you guys at the end of the video, what are some things that you guys would like to see at the end of the year, or either what are your thought processes on this here. So we're going to be going over some of these responses as well as what I think about them here in today's video. So of course, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and OX error. Remember, be sure to answer your giveaway call. You have about 24 hours to answer that. You were the winner of the giveaway. If you do not answer, we will be, of course, re-rolling. But as always, we're gonna go ahead and get straight into the video. Now, when it does come down to this one here, I decided to also not put music in this one because the game itself does have in-game music. Now, it's gonna sound a little bit weird when we swap menus, because right now you guys are hearing this lovely theme. I really do love this one anyways. But what's it called? We're gonna end up swapping to our other screen, showing off exactly what's happening, or at least what a lot of people have been saying about the end of the year reviews. So it's gonna either go silent, or what I could probably do is pull up the actual screen and then swap back over to my game, so then it still has the audio from this as well. But we'll figure it out when the time comes. But I did ask a bunch of you guys about this here, so you guys are going to hear silence for a split second, and you guys should see on the screen. Now, some of you had some very interesting ideas. Some of you had some other ones that was very interesting as well. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about this a little bit by bit here. With a couple of these I've already looked at here, there are going to be a few that I'm going to go over, and there also is a ton that I won't go over here, mainly because there are so many different things that we could possibly add here. But one of the first things that I did want to talk about was at least Jet's comment here. He said at that point in the video, it reminds him something of FF7 Ever Crisis had something like this, where there were harder versions of the dungeons, which is pretty much me where I was talking about what they could do with the actual main story. Is we would have the regular main story, and then we have a harder version of the main story, which gives you more rewards, different pools, things of this. And he also stated that this can give you like draw tickets, free to play currency, mats, and the bosses and enemies will definitely be harder with different modifiers. Now, this is something that I truly do want to see inside of this game. We mainly only see it, or at least we only kind of talk about it to some small extent here. And I really do want to see something like this to be introduced into the game, because when we do look inside of at least the metaverse, or where we do look inside of the palaces here, which I'm not going to show too much of the palaces because I don't want anyone to get spoiled on here. But if we go ahead and click this, there's several different palaces immediately right here. If we check out these and take Koichi, for example, which we've all seen his palace at Palace 1, this one we really didn't spend much time on. It was fairly quick. It got straight to the point. We ran through it, and then we kept going with our business. I would like them to actually go ahead and make a harder variant of this, where we do have to, of course, research for all the chests and stuff, get a ton of different gems out of here. Like, for example, this palace alone still had a decent bit of gems and resources out of it. They could end up including more bosses if they wanted to in different areas. They could change up the bosses and leave them in the same area and just make them way harder, while also giving a lot more different chest values in here as well. This is a huge deal that I feel like a lot of the times they do need to go ahead and do, mainly just because it's a very interesting concept. I think it'd be an interesting time to really give us a harder variant for these bosses. So it'd be pretty darn cool to see if it's like a limited time event where we can actually do this. And then he also said there is something called EX versions, which I do know of this game. So EX dungeons as well are time limited based on your score, and that would be kind of interesting because we already have like a time limited event type deal, which are some of the bosses that we've seen. We also have a couple that are like via P3Rs bosses in them that are at least on the leaderboard here, so them at least acquiring a leaderboard for these type of dungeons would also be pretty interesting, making them harder and harder. And really you're just scoring just to see not only who can get through the palace and kill all the bosses here with the fastest times, but also who's just being able to kill the boss in general with the fastest time. I think it's a pretty cool thing to actually go ahead and do. So an interesting one that we can do. Now, another one that I took a little bit of interest in here is Dubs Brown. Now, I have my problems with this one to a small extent, but I also do enjoy some of the things he said. So one of the small, at least, problems that I do have is a PvP mode. Now, he did state, of course, it doesn't have to be live. You can put it on auto battle and they just go against real time, or at least go against other player squads, and you rank up and do challenges. Although this is very interesting, this would bring in a whole headache that a lot of people don't understand just yet, that if we bring in PvP, in any sorts of PvP, so let's just go ahead and check the screen, right? If we bring in any sorts of PvP, we also have to understand that there's going to be a lot of whales here, right? It's going to be a lot of people who spend some money. Now, I spent some decent money on TW, right? But I'm not whaling by any means, yet my account still looks really, really good. So one of the issues that I have with this is when it does come down to PvP, there will still have to be a ranking system, and there will have to be rewards deeming enough for a ranking system. Where we see these rewards not really matter is in like SOS, or heck, even inside of Guild Boss, where ranking doesn't really matter in this game. It's one of the few issues that well, I'm not an issue, I kind of like it the way it is here, but ranking, it doesn't really matter in this game. We just check the rankings for at least our for TW here, check the actual ranking rewards, you don't get practically anything just for the guild here. So they would have to make the rewards absolutely not worth it whatsoever to even include it, but it then wouldn't be worth even using, or at least doing, the game mode itself, kind of just like Guild Boss to some extent. You just wouldn't see it needed to really do. If they also added PvP in here, it also would drive a huge PvP meta, meaning some characters would be better in PvP and will be specifically PvP driven. With that in mind, it's not going to be the best thing to go ahead and do, especially when you do think about summons wise and then bring in that whole forte, because the only way they're going to get you to summon for PvP units is if the rewards in PvP are really worth it, which we don't really want that in this game. Still, interesting idea that he did want to have, but I don't think it would really be executed all too well. Now, something that did catch my eye though, that he talked about, was at least the raids. Now, he said raids, instead of having a 4-party member team and 1 Navi, you face a crazy boss. Think of something like final bosses in P5 Strikers. This will allow you to use every single Phantom Thief in a set amount of rotations. This could lead to some crazy busted strategies, experimentation, and even satisfaction of using your neglected units. This is something I really do like. This is really huge, because when it comes down to raids is one of the few things that I feel like this game would very well benefit from, seeing that we need more content where our actual characters will be used. Whether these characters have their moments in the limelight or not, we definitely want to be able to show off some of our older characters, or at least be able to try to use them in some aspects. For example, inside of the actual raid, you could have party buffs or a character buff. For example, Ren, who is a cursed debuffer, one of our first ones, could have an insane buff here to actually want you to use her, or even a challenge to use her that has a certain amount of points, or a party buff that is connected to her if you do decide to use her. I think that would be a cool thing, and if they could actually even spread something like this as a multiplayer idea, where each of you will command 1 character of your choosing, I think that'd be also pretty darn cool for people to queue up for and actually do something with it. He also brought in some aspects of the Compendio being overhauled, a couple other things such as premium outfit reruns, which they have talked about, and then of course controller support on mobile. There's a few other things that they talked about, which all are pretty darn interesting, though it will be kind of interesting to see exactly how that does work out. For an end of the year plan though, I think that's a pretty awesome one. Now, there were a couple others that were some small ones here that I did want to go over, at least 2 more here. And we have Hartford that I wanted to go over, as well as the data sensor, or I think it's data consred down there that I wanted to go over, besides of course our man Infantry Pulse. Now, Infantry Pulse here, he said, I would love to see them doing Persona Awakenings, at least for the P5/P5 arc cast. It would be a great way to keep up those characters relevant, in which I'll straight up say it right now, this is something that we already know is going to probably happen, especially with the P5 arc cast, or even the P5 cast, because those are pretty much just going to be new gacha banners. What we know right there is they're probably not going to be an awakening of a sort, but they will be their own character. This isn't going to be too surprising here, because of course it's going to give them more funds and make people want to summon for their brand new characters all over again. It's just going to take some time. So that's definitely something I want to see at the end of the year, or at least them to talk about. That'd be kind of interesting. Then of course we had Harvard. Now Harvard brought up this was an interesting one there as well, and it also second natured the palaces here. One of the 4 major updates will just be in 5.0 to 5.3, and this is mainly just going to be story ones that he was expecting, as well as P3R and some other game mode example. But he also thought about the adding of 2 parts of Heart Rail. Now 2 parts of Heart Rail, we haven't seen Heart Rail get updated for quite some time on TW here, so it would definitely make sense for them to go ahead and add a little bit something on Heart Rail. Though the question is, how long would that take? Now currently we only have the 180, and even I didn't even complete this thing here. I forgot that I even had percentage on it. But we had 180 here, and it has not been updated for quite some time. I think the only boss stats are here are this 3rd train track here that goes up to difficulty 8, and you're really just facing these dudes. These ones are coming to global, or already on global, one of the 2. So it doesn't make sense to finally add 2 more parts to Heart Rail, but they just genuinely have not done it. Now I don't know, of course, if that's just because they forgot about Heart Rail, or either just the overwhelming feedback that they know that we don't really like Heart Rail. It's probably one of the 2, but definitely would be cool to have something like that. Then of course he did end up saying that the palaces would be fun for a hard mode, and one cool thing would be if you could restrict character rosters from said events and hard modes itself. This would be a cool thing, because then at this point it would allow you to then have to really decide who you're going to end up losing, and actually who's going to be able to actually be used in certain areas, and know your team comps to doing so. So out of nowhere you might have to use 4-star closer and build a team around her, but you have to use a little bit of your head to figure out how that team is really going to work. I think that'd be a cool thing that's actually going to happen if they do use it as a 4 major update, but it's kind of hard to see, but still would be an awesome thing to think about. Then of course Dita down here said, I really want them to change the one more system, which was another thing I did talk about as well. It's cool to turn off your brain when it is the start of the game, but afterwards it starts to make the enemy feel underwhelming, or either it just makes it feel boring. Now of course we all understand the reason why they can't do this is because you don't want to make some of the characters way too busted, or you don't want to make some of the things way too broken to a point that there is no challenge. But there's also a reason that they have it this way, because you don't want to make things too weak and the mobs too busted, because then that'll be the whole point of people wanting to spin. To an extent, if you just make it that way, the free-to-play audience will get to a point where they just can't beat anything, while the pay-to-win audience will get to a point where they can beat everything. So finding a happy medium is always going to be a hard part here. Though he did say I can understand why they didn't make it like P5, that's based on how busted some of the characters are for them. Though it still would be kind of interesting. Hopefully they can make something more rewarding like this, and he did mention that as well, but it would be pretty darn interesting. Another thing he said is giving characters out of battle swappable skill sets would also be cool, especially because a lot of characters that everyone loves like Joker, Skull, and Queen are too simple when compared to the current releases. Some of them need to be reworked, like Queen, where she can heal everyone when she's in crash outs, although it's dreaming too much. Now I do agree it would be kind of interesting for them to do something like this, though it would be very hard to pull off. And then of course, and more than likely than anything, the whole swapping of skill sets would be very, very hard to do. Now granted, we do have a character who recently can swap characters in and out of the team, here being Fuka, so who knows what we can see in the future. But those are all the cool ones that I really want to go over. There was a couple more comments down below, in which who knows, if y'all want to see me go over some of those comments, let me know down below in the comment section. But for now, thank you guys for watching this one. I gotta say, a lot of you guys' comments are very interesting, especially on the end of the year ideas. And I'm not gonna lie, I might have a whole video depending on a little bit of a follow-up on this, deciding on what I feel like the end of the year stuff should be even more so. But till then, everybody, thank you for watching and peace out.